My name is Daniel Brooks. Today I want to tell you my story about the day I came home early from the hospital and discovered my wife's betrayal. My wife with her lover in our bed. She looked at me and said, "He is much better than you. You're just a husband by name." Before we begin, please subscribe to the channel and comment below where you're watching from. The nurse slid a stack of papers across the counter and gave me a cheerful smile. "Looks like your healing came faster than expected, Mr. Brooks. The doctor says you're free to go." I forced a weak grin, though my chest still burned from the surgery. I had spent a few nights in the recovery ward, tethered to machines that beeped and hummed. Not once had my wife Maya walked through those doors. She'd excused herself by saying hospitals made her too anxious. I told myself I understood, but deep down, I knew that excuse was paper thin. The cab ride home felt endless. The antiseptic stench of the hospital still clung to me, yet my thoughts drifted to what waited at the house. My own bed, the smell of food cooking, maybe even some quiet time with Maya. For a brief moment, I let myself believe in that comfort. But as the taxi pulled onto our residential street, my gut tightened. Maya's black crossover sat crooked across the driveway like someone had parked in a rush. She was always neat, always precise. That single detail screamed that something wasn't right. I paid the driver, grabbed my duffel bag, and stepped quietly inside. Darkness wrapped the house except for a faint glow spilling from upstairs. I didn't call her name. I don't know why. Some heavy instinct warned me to stay silent. The staircase groaned under my weight as I climbed. At the top, the bedroom door hung slightly open. I nudged it with my palm, and that's when I saw the truth. Maya was tangled in the sheets of our bed, her body pressed against a man I had never seen before, Ryan Cross. On the nightstand, our framed family photo leaned sideways, like it was watching everything unfold. I froze. My chest stopped hurting. My mind just went blank. 10 whole seconds passed, yet neither of them noticed me. No shouting, no rage, no collapse into tears, just silence, cold and absolute. I backed away, step by step, until I was outside again. The cab was still waiting, engine humming. I slid into the back seat and whispered, "Keep going." The driver glanced at me through the rearview mirror. "You serious? You just got dropped off, man." I didn't answer. My jaw was tight, my eyes locked on nothing. Images burned in my head, Maya laughing, her touch on someone else, that bed we once called ours. "Just drive," I muttered. Halfway to the airport, I snapped out of it. "Change of plan, take me downtown." The driver shrugged and obeyed. He didn't ask where. He didn't need to. When the cab pulled up in front of a downtown attorney's office, I still wore the same sweatpants and hoodie I had left the hospital in. Inside, Marcus Cole, an old friend who owed me more favors than he could count, looked up in shock. "Daniel, you're supposed to be in recovery for another day." "Plans changed," I said flatly. He ushered me into his office. Behind closed doors, I laid it out piece by piece, my voice low, steady, emotionless. I told him what I had seen. No screaming, no curse words. Just the facts, lined up like dominoes. Marcus leaned back, fingers laced. "So, you want a divorce?" "Yes, but that's not all." From my bag, I pulled a folder I had been preparing long before my surgery. Inside were property deeds, bank documents, and the old power of attorney Maya had never bothered to update. What she didn't know was that last year I had quietly moved every asset into a trust. Marcus scanned the pages, eyebrows rising with every sheet. "You shift at everything already. Every last piece," I said calmly. "The house, the business, the savings. She thinks she owns half. She doesn't." He exhaled sharply. "She has no clue, does she?" I shook my head. "And within hours, her accounts will be frozen. The credit card shut down. She'll come home to find she doesn't even have a place to sleep." Marcus let out a slow whistle. "Daniel, you're turning this into a battle." I stood, closing the folder. No, I've already taken control. By the time the sun dipped below the skyline, our home no longer felt like a home at all. It had become a fortress, a place where Maya no longer belonged. The locksmith arrived quickly, tools clinking as every lock on every door was replaced. I didn't stop there. The garage opener was reset, the alarm system reprogrammed, her access completely erased. The house that once held laughter and dinners now stood like a fortress of stone, cold and closed. And that was only the beginning. Maya hadn't realized yet that the locks were just the first step. The real dismantling of her world was only about to begin. I didn't just change the locks. I stripped every last thread of access Maya had. The security code she once proudly set was erased, and the alarm company flagged her name as if she were an intruder. I knew her well enough. Once the thrill of her affair burned out, she'd try to crawl back. But I wasn't going to wait for her tears. My next stop was the bank. The clerk raised her brows when I slid over my ID and asked her to close the joint account. Maya had been treating that account like a bottomless well for weeks, swiping and spending, certain I'd never notice. But she hadn't logged in today. By the time she did, it would be too late. I shifted the remaining around $20,000 into a private account she had never even heard of. Then I signed the paperwork freezing every financial move under her name. I sigh. Ted fraud and unauthorized activity. The branch manager didn't even blink. "You're not the first," she said with a weary sigh. "But you're one of the rare few who stopped it in time." I corrected her, my voice even. I let her believe she was winning. From there, I made one more call. Our shared vehicle, the black crossover she bragged about as if it were hers alone, wasn't legally in her name. Under a buyback clause we'd signed, the dealership came and collected it that very afternoon. With nothing more than a phone call and my signature, the car vanished from our lives. Later that day, I waited across the street beside Marcus Cole's SUV, a coffee warming my hands. From that distance, I watched the scene unfold like a play. Maya and Ryan Cross strolled up the driveway, likely assuming they'd slip back into my bed as if nothing had happened. But the key didn't turn. The garage wouldn't open. Their cards, already flagged, began to fail, one after the other. Maya pounded the door, her voice sharp with disbelief. Daniel, open up, this isn't funny." Ryan puffed up his chest, trying to look brave. "Hey man, let's not make this a problem. Just open up. We're not here to fight." I took a slow sip of coffee, ignoring the pounding. My silence was louder than any argument. Then I turned to Marcus. "We're done here. Let's go." As the SUV rolled away, I glanced back. Maya had collapsed on the porch, her sobs echoing into the night. Ryan paced like a trapped animal, checking his phone again and again, probably realizing his so-called escape plan had no exit. But I didn't feel an ounce of pity. That moment wasn't the end. It was only the first stone in the avalanche. The next morning, I sat on the patio of a small hotel downtown, the air calm, the city rushing by with briefcases and earbuds. For the first time in days, I felt detached, almost peaceful. Then my phone vibrated. The screen lit with several missed calls from Maya, a handful from unknown numbers. I didn't need to guess who that was, and a couple of voicemails. I didn't bother listening. Instead, I logged into Marcus's secure client portal. Everything was lined up and ready. The divorce papers had been filed. A restraining order was already moving forward, backed by security footage from my own cameras. She hadn't even closed the blinds. The judge would see everything. The civil suit was next. Maya had siphoned off thousands, including funds from my veterans support benefits, which were federally protected. Marcus told me she'd either repay or face criminal charges. I didn't care which outcome came first. What made me smirk was the digital trail. She had funneled some of that stolen money directly into Ryan Cross's payment app account. A rookie mistake. His name was now tied to the fraud. I made another move that same day. Maya worked part-time at a community institute. Ryan, of course, was an instructor there, I sent an email with the evidence to the campus ethics board, laying out their inappropriate relationship and misuse of school resources. Hours later, I got a polite reply. "Thank you for your report. This has been forwarded to the Internal Review Committee." The dominoes were lined up, and I had just flicked the first one. By lunch, a new message popped onto my phone. "Daniel, please, can we just talk? This has gotten out of control. We never meant to hurt you like this." I almost laughed into my coffee. They hadn't meant to hurt me. That was the lie of the century. Maya thought the worst was behind her, but she hadn't even seen the full storm yet. The people she trusted most were about to learn the truth. Of course they had meant to wound me. They simply miscalculated what kind of man I was. Maya and Ryan expected me to crumble, to retreat into silence and shame. Instead, they met a silence filled with calculation, the kind of quiet edge only someone who once mapped battlefield strategies could understand. And the best strike was still ahead. They didn't realize who truly controlled the house now, or that I was on my way to her parents' doorstep with undeniable proof in hand. Maya's parents had never disguised how little they thought of me. To them, I was a placeholder, until she latched onto someone better. Her mother, Elaine, once muttered during a family holiday dinner, "Well, he might not be the man we prayed for, but at least the bills get paid." I never forgot those words. They had burned into my memory like a brand. So when I parked outside their residential street home on a cool weekend afternoon, folder tucked under my arm, I already knew this meeting would not be warm. Maya answered the door, her face drained of color. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" "I'm here to share something with your parents," I said evenly. Before she could block me, Elaine appeared behind her with that same smug smile. "So you came back after all?" I didn't take the bait. "May I come in?" Maya hesitated, but Elaine waved dismissively. "Let him speak." They led me into the living room, where Victor, her father, lounged in his chair, flipping through a sports magazine. He barely looked up. "You've got just a few minutes," Maya said stiffly. "Less than that," I replied. I set the folder on the coffee table and carefully slid out 3 documents. The first, proof of roughly $40,000 siphoned from our joint savings, complete with screenshots, timestamps, and even the transfer she had made straight into Ryan's account for their little trip. The second, an email printout from the campus ethics board confirming that Maya and Ryan were under investigation for misconduct at the Community Institute. And the third, the deed to the house. What Maya never knew was that I had sold the property weeks before. The buyer was my cousin Jordan, who leased it back to me under a private contract. From the moment the locks changed, Maya had been trespassing every time she set foot inside. Elaine's face twisted. "You're bluffing." I handed the paperwork to Victor. "You're welcome to check with the registrar yourself." For once, the man was silent as he read. Maya's hands shook. "You'll hear from my lawyer," I told her calmly. "I'm pursuing recovery of the funds, and if needed, I'll take it to court. Theft of veterans' support benefits is a federal crime." Her voice cracked. "Why are you doing this to me?" I met her eyes. "For over a decade, I put you above everything. And when I came home from surgery, you were with another man in our bed. You mocked me. You laughed. And you—" I turned to Elaine. "You encouraged it. Now I'm returning the favor, legally and publicly." I placed one last paper on the table, a notice canceling the housing support aid I had been secretly paying on their mortgage each month. I was planning to surprise you with a full payoff in December, but now? I gave a small shrug. "Consider this an early cancellation." I stood, calm as ever, and walked out. Behind me, the storm erupted. Maya shouting, Elaine sobbing, Victor's angry voice thundering through the walls. To me, it wasn't noise. It was music. Because revenge wasn't about rage. It was about precision, silence, and timing. And my campaign had only just begun. The weeks that followed proved louder in their silence than any confrontation could. No mocking texts, no sarcastic emails, nothing. Because Maya's carefully constructed life was collapsing around her. The first blow was the eviction. She ignored the notice at first, thinking I was bluffing about the ownership transfer. But when deputies arrived at home, the door in uniform, papers in hand, she broke down in the open, weeping in front of her neighbors. And that was only the beginning. The eviction was just the first crack in Maya's facade. Soon, her career, her family ties, and even her lover's future would be swept into the same downfall. When the deputies left Maya standing on the curb, she looked around for Ryan, but her better man was nowhere to be found. By then, his job at the Community Institute had already been suspended under the quiet cloud of the investigation. When the screenshots of their private messages leaked, some pulled straight from university servers, the damage was permanent. Ryan didn't just lose his position, his tenure was stripped, his pension revoked, and the school's board released a public apology for allowing the scandal to happen on campus grounds. His wife hadn't known a thing, at least not until I mailed her an envelope packed with vacation pictures of Maya and Ryan, handwritten captions beneath them. "He makes me feel alive again." Her response was swift and sharp. She filed for divorce that same week. Maya, desperate, tried to run back to her parents, but Victor refused to pick up her calls. Elaine, too humiliated to face her social circle, stopped showing up at the private club she once flaunted. Their finances collapsed further, sliding several months behind on mortgage payments while collectors hounded them daily. As for Maya herself, she landed a job at a discount retail store, the very kind of place she once sneered at online. Her pride was shattered, yet she still found a way to play the victim. On a social media site, she poured out post after post about betrayal, manipulation, and how life had wronged her. She cast herself as the wounded one. But I had receipts. One evening, I created a burner account and typed a single reply beneath her latest dramatic rant. "Didn't you mock your husband for being hospitalized while you were with another man in his bed? Curious if that makes it into your next post, too." Dozens liked it, some shared. Comments piled up in disbelief. Overnight, the circle of friends who once defended her drifted away. She wasn't the victim anymore. She was the liar. That night, a message appeared on my phone. "Daniel, why are you doing this? Can't we at least talk?" I stared at it, almost amused. My answer was simple. "I did talk, for over a decade. You never listened." Then I blocked her. That was the last time I ever heard from Maya Brooks. Months later, my life looked nothing like the ruins I had walked away from. I bought a quiet cabin near a lake in a small town, not far from the regional hospital where I still went for checkups. Some mornings I fished, other days I volunteered with veterans. I had also started a community legal aid foundation to help struggling military families secure housing and protect their rights. Part of its funding came from the restitution Maya had been court-ordered to pay. Every month, a few $1,000s landed in the foundation's account, steady as clockwork. People sometimes ask me if I miss her. The truth? I don't. I only miss the woman I thought she was. This was never about revenge. It was about balance, about finally closing a chapter that had festered too long. Every lie leaves a shadow. Every betrayal finds its reckoning. So, what do you think? Was what I did justified? Tell me in the comments below. If this story struck you, like it, share it with someone who needs this kind of reminder, and subscribe for more stories where truth cuts deeper than betrayal. Stay sharp, stay strong, and stay ready. That was my story. And while life has moved forward, pieces of it still echo inside me. Maybe you faced something similar, or maybe you just wonder what you would have done in my place. Either way, I want to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story spoke to you, don't forget to hit subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes a single story doesn't just entertain, it changes the way we see everything.